Very much for taking time to speak to us today. First question, your expectations for Paris?
Yes, you see, the expectations for Paris as a scientist, engage in a broader global scientific community has to be split in two parts. The first is, what's the scientific message to the climate negotiations? And it's very clear. We've just put forward something called the Earth Statement, which is a synthesis of what needs to happen in Paris. And the message is really clear. We need to keep ourselves as far as we ever can away from the planetary guardrail of maximum 2 degrees Celsius, which requires a transformation within a global carbon budget to a zero carbon dioxide from fossil fuel emissions by 2050 or soon thereafter, which has to be shared in an equitable way, and we need finance and adaptation means to pursue that. Now, that is a scientific clear message. And if we would fail with that, we actually risk catastrophic tipping points that may push the world in a very dangerous direction. Are we going to achieve that in Paris? The answer is no. And then the question is, can one still consider Paris a success? What would that mean? And that part comes to the second part of the answer, which is yes, in fact. And that may sound surprising as a scientist, but the reason is dual. One is that we have 185 countries that have put forward their pledges. These pledges are, to a large extent, not only ambitious, but many countries, and a significant portion of them, so far at least, are showing transformative, deep pledges that would actually take them decisively towards a decarbonization path, and that this will actually mean that we may have a large enough minority of countries indicating and signaling to world investors and hedge funders and entrepreneurs and businesses that we're actually leaving our fossil fuel era behind and transforming towards a safe climate future. So Paris can actually be considered a success, even if it doesn't meet this global scientific requirement of 2 degrees and global carbon budget. Can be considered a success if we get a large enough number of countries committing seriously with monitoring, verification and revision of the targets towards decarbonization, so that the signal to the world is we're now turning a page. We've reached a tipping point. We're leaving the fossil fuel era behind. We're decisively moving towards decarbonization, which means that the question is no longer, whether or not we are going to decarbonize. It's just, will we do it fast enough? So my own view is that Paris can still succeed if we can achieve the social tipping point with a signal to the world that we're decisively moving in the right direction. And this is right at the edge right now, so we'll see where this ends up in the end.
Very briefly at the end, your message to the people watching the climate conference from outside.
Well, to me the key issue is that there is a careful, constructive, optimistic wind blowing here in Paris. There's still a lot of challenges to be dealt with. There's still a lot of push to be put and accountability required. But we're seeing as never before a consensus on the risks, a consensus on the opportunities related to decarbonization. We have scalable technologies and systems that can actually pursue this trajectory, and therefore there is reason to be at least carefully optimistic that Paris can be the starting point towards a new transition towards a decarbonized future.
Johan, thanks very much for taking time to speak to us.